a more diverse world is a better world. It's a world with less conflict. It's a world with more possibilities and better ideas.
Tomorrow Today. Nachgefragt bei CXOs.
A very warm welcome to Tomorrow Today, the Accenture podcast on digitalization, sustainability and diversity. I'm Jan Ising, leading our life science business in Europe, based out of Germany. I'm delighted to introduce Patricia Corsi, Chief Marketing and IT Officer at Bayer Consumer Health. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Jan, and thank you, Accenture, for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on this podcast today, and I would like to start with your creative mind. I would like to get some insight about your recent judging experience at Cannes. What do you take from the experience into your daily business?
It's very interesting because I had the opportunity that is quite unique. I've been 2 years in a row judging Cannes Health and Wellness. This year, as the president of the jury, we had a fantastic set of cases presented to us. But as we had so many insights and it was extremely full of great ideas, I will summarize in the 3 key points that still resonate with me 6 months after. The first one is constraints. If it's budget, people, social contests, this can be a powerful unlock for the art of possibilities and creative solutions. And we have seen many of those cases winning Grand Prix at Health and Wellness and or Pharma. The second one is on digital solutions. They are here to stay, and the best ideas were also the ones who look at digital above and beyond being a media channel. When you look how they succeed, they use it as a vehicle for improved user experience, driving fresh insights and access to low-income and or marginalized audience. If you look at some of the cases, like the one for the non-fungible testicles, it's a great example on how do you use technology to talk about a taboo topic that is much needed to drive a modern and intensive conversation about. The third one is I saw immense progress in the health industry, and this is the benefit of seeing 3 years in a row of materials. Both on pharma and consumer health, we can see that this industry are delivering more and better in creativity that serves not only the consumers but also the customers. Especially after COVID, I think there is this open door from the people that we serve to learn more about science and how to better and be more proactive taking care of their health. I don't think we ever had in the history that we can account for so many dinner tables discussing science and vaccines and things like that. And will be, shame on us if we don't use this as a catalyst for better creative, better educational programs, and really driving the creativity up on the rankings from this industry.
I like that, and we'll be talking about technology in just a moment. Maybe staying on the creative part for a little bit, you are one of the advocates of raising the bar of creativity for the benefit of consumers. Tell us a bit more of what you mean to you and what you take from the creative world to inspire your technology-related responsibilities.
This is one of my passion points within my job. Of course, creativity is just a small part of what is marketing. And I'm a big advocate to make sure that people understand that modern marketing is not doing advertising and only that. But this is the part that gets out and really has a massive impact on habits and the way the consumer understand our brands, our products, and the things we have there to serve and to help them to live better lives. When I look at creativity for this industry specifically, but I would say that is also expandable to the fast-moving consumer goods, technology, and other industries, there is a massive opportunity to use creativity to drive access, especially to low-income consumers, but also inclusion. And this is something that only marketing can do, and probably other functions can do, but not as well, as big, and as impactful as marketing. So really raising the bar on creativity has a benefit for the industry, because when you're talking about health, we should be theoretically in every single household, because I doubt that there is a house where somebody doesn't have either a headache, a tummy ache, a cough and cold, needs nutritional supplements. But this is not the case at the moment. And we need to help them to navigate and understand this industry, because more and more, and COVID was a proof of it, people are searching for own ways to take care of their health. And we have a massive job to do it. But we need creativity for that. The old style of having doctors talking a language that nobody understands, unfortunately, is not enough in today's world. We need things that people can relate to, they can connect to. By the way, that they can make TikTok challenges. This is the way to go for the future.
I'm fully with you, and especially I believe it is very important that also doctors and pharmacists pick up the language of the consumers and the patient, because we call them Doc Google these days, because people become so much more educated. I mean, if you go back to my own parents, they would look at the doctor as the goddess in white and would believe what he said. These days, we come to a doctor and we actually have our own diagnostic. And with this, also technology is an important piece, right? So, you said before, your second passion is technology. Now you're in this unique position to combine in your chief marketing and IT officer, these two roles. Tell us a bit more about these two roles and how you manage to excel in both of them, and what synergies do you see in putting these two roles into one character as you are?
Indeed, I'm very passionate about technology, and I work very hard every day to keep myself up to speed, because as it is marketing, this is a function where every day I go to sleep thinking I know something, and I wake up and I discover there is something new. And I think this is extremely exciting for the new generation coming into this craft. But I will give you a tangible example on how my new role is very cool, and there is no other way to say that. We recently at Bayer, we acquire a percentage of a diagnostic company called Ada Health. They have one of the best algorithms in the world in terms of, you put your information there and they tell you potentially what you have, and if you should consult a doctor, if you should go for a OTC, over-the-counter medication. And the beautiful thing about my role is that I can connect this directly with our brands. And a simple example is, let me pick one of our very important brands, Canesten, that helps women to manage their intimate health. There is a massive taboo, even on women going to the pharmacy and standing in front of this shelf. And when you have a diagnostic tool that you can do on your phone that can help you understand what is going on with your body and make a right decision when you go to the pharmacy, we are enabling and increasing the chances that people are really going to take a step and do something about that condition. And this has massive societal impacts, because we know that lots of people, they lose work days, and with that they decrease their income because they can't treat, they don't have medical insurance to treat some of the ailments that they have. And some of them are quite easy to treat. Some of them, of course, you need a doctor. Some of them, a pharmacist, reinforcement or guidance will be enough. If you have a headache that is not persistent, you don't need to consult a doctor. You can just go to the pharmacy and take care of it. So this is the beautiful thing about technology, because we can link technology and products in a way that we have never done before. But also I see the great opportunity for us, again, as an industry, to move from an industry of bottles and blisters to an industry that we will have bottles and blisters. We will have bottles and blisters plus services. And in other cases, it's going to be just services. Because in some cases, and let's talk about mental health, there are things that you can do with bottles and blisters. But there are also things that you can do just by improving the way you eat, your sleep, your exercise routine. And we can help people doing that by doing, helping them to manage that in their daily routine. And that's why we see, the explosion of, sensors and body trackers has like we have never seen before. You know, I have so many people that I meet that have Aura rings or that have Fitbits or Apple Watches. And this is already showing that we are again going through an open door where people really want to understand the combination of technology data to personalize the way they take care of their own health.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And just to drop another brand name, I have a Whoop around my wrist, and it really is astonishing how many information you get while you think you're actually living healthy. You believe you do. And the data shows you in many cases that is exactly the opposite. So I think it will help us. Now, is this your pitch that we will see more of those combined roles? Or would you even say that in the near future, every business role, whether this is marketing, R&D, and others, have to actually think business and technology in one, and that the classical, let's say, CIO role is really moving more and more into a business-led decision enabler?
This is a tough question. Look, I'm going to do an elegant third option. So my pitch is that everyone that is in business today needs to understand technology. And in the areas where you have clear synergies, I think it makes life easier and faster and more efficient if you combine roles, because you don't have to arbitrate budgets, teams, and things like that. So, you know, when we are discussing the platforms, like the example that I mentioned before on symptoms, I don't need to discuss and have 5 extra meetings with anyone else to decide if I'm going to bring this to the deal committee, for example. So I think this brings a lot of speed, but more than anything, we are living in the world where we cannot separate who are the analog people and the digital people. Everyone needs to be digitally savvy, needs to understand the power of technology, and especially needs to understand that talking about data is not enough. We need to make sure that we understand what it takes for us to be able to extract value for the business and for our consumers and customers out of data, because the amount of data we can collect and we have now is unprecedented compared to when I start my career in business. But it's also overwhelming, Jan. So when you think about the amount of things that people in the commercial area needs to do at the moment versus in the past, one of the biggest risks that we have with technology is that if you're not very good at prioritizing and being focused, you get lost because there is absolutely so much. So I think this is one of my pitches. You need to understand technology, but also you have to be really careful on how deep you go and how lost you get with the number of things that can be done, would be nice to be done, versus the things that you make a bet and you go for MVPs and you go for really, you know, safe to try and speed over perfection. So these are the things that I would say are really beneficial when you have the combined role.
I fully agree. And it was an elegant way of answering a provocative question. But what I see also in the next generation of people coming into us, they have a very different view to technology. For them, it's much more embedded in the daily operations. And it feels much more natural to them to use certain things compared to maybe people that have been brought up in an industry or in a career that really didn't see these things to be happening, right? So that's why we now benefit from technology change very much. You said before you're an industry of blisters and bottles and future services and other add-ons. Now, I would like to put this into perspective of sustainability, right? An important piece from a consumer perspective. I mean, we see consumers demand this one with a full right. I also believe that the recent environmental challenges of all the crisis we're in foster even a more economic and environmental thinking of our consumers. Now, you live in an industry that's highly regulated. You cannot simply change your packaging as you like. Right? You have regulation that you need to apply. Still, where do you see levers for sustainability in consumer health companies?
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. Sustainability now is table stake, and it's a new way of doing business. And I'm sure we will have the opportunity to talk about diversity and inclusion as well. That is another table stake. But when we talk about sustainability, you know, most of my career I have spent on commercial roles in fast-moving consumer goods, from chocolate to laundry detergent. I went to a recycling center in the UK, and the amount of plastic bottles we would see either on shampoos or laundry detergents or even the aluminum cans of deodorants, it's impressive versus the total amount of garbage, right? And from a product preservation and safety point of view, there is a couple of things that you need to do, especially with aerosols and etc. But I would say it's much easier than in the health industry. In the health industry, our priority number one, of course, is preserve and protect the products and the benefits to the consumer, because this cannot be at risk. With that said, our teams are working relentlessly to find solutions that can continue to make our products safe and sustainable. For example, the child-proof blisters. If we make them sustainable, but we don't make them safe for children, this is a no-go option for us. And I've lived this a little bit in laundry with the pods. This was another big risk in terms of child safety. And you can see there that it tends to be that you use more plastic or more paper to protect. So the future is really how do we make sure that we manage to have this protection, this preservation of ingredient material, because a medicine has to work, while working with maybe new materials that we are just discovering now that are able to do both, protect and use less plastic, less paper. But there are lots of things that we can do that do not change anything. For example, virgin paper we shouldn't be using in this industry. We look at the grammature of plastic for bottles and things like that that we can all immediately do.
And I'm fully with you, Patricia, that even the consumer needs to change. That I have my own experience. I recently used a suntan lotion, which was all paper-based. And it was a fairly high-priced product. And only after 2 days, the package looked like very been intensively used, right? Compared to the plastic version 4, which always looked nice until the very last day. And also there, we need to change our own experience from it. Like, what do we expect from such a product? Because in the end, you're absolutely right. The packaging needs to be protective, needs to preserve it. But in the end, the product itself doesn't change by the packaging. And I think this is also a behavioral change that we need to go through as consumers to really accept that also a medical or a consumer health product can look different to what we accept also in classic consumer environments, right? So I think that's an important piece. Is there any good example from Bayer you would like to mention in that regards where you're trying to do the steps in consumer health to go in that direction?
We have done a tremendous amount of progress. I was talking paper in terms of renewable sources, for example. And this is something really important to us because if and everyone has lived this experience, you buy, a multivitamins. And then you have, of course, the outer box, you have the bottle or the glass inside, and then you have an insert. There is a lot of paper as well. So we are making progress both in terms of the sources of material for the paper, for the boxes, but also in, for example, Central America, we are doing lots of experiences where we have QR codes instead of having full inserts, which is a tremendous, economy of paper, while also providing the consumer with the important information they need. But if we are being reasonable when we are selling products by unit, it's very difficult for each unit to go with the insert. Yeah. So again, this is a great example of how do we use technology again with the QR codes to help consumer access the information that they need.
Thank you for sharing. Great to see the progress. It's so important for all of us and also for the next generations. Talk about next generations. I'm a father of 2 teenage daughters. I'm a big passionate for inclusion and diversity, and yourself, I think you're a role model in that area. I see your post and you're very outspoken to many things that are on your mind. Now, we know that marketing has changed in recent years dramatically when it comes to inclusion and diversity. I mean, for me, always iconic is the Dove Real Beauty campaign, where we see real women using real products. And it just is so appealing to me. Other things have changed. And also Bayer syndrome memory test just recently won a bronze lion in Cannes. So congratulations and great to see this progress. And how do you take this diversity that you observe in your, let's say, marketing work, and how do you take this into your own person doing of living diversity in your teams, in your organization at Bayer, and also in your brands that you're driving in your marketing officer role?
This is indeed a very important topic for all of us. A more diverse word is a better word. It's a word with less conflict. It's a word with more possibilities and better ideas. So I'm passionate for this because of that I think we can come up with more solutions, better solutions to the biggest problems in the world if we have more diversity of thinking, diversity of experience. So I really believe that this is, again, another non-negotiable. I'm very proud to lead the most diverse team in consumer health. And this is on strategic marketing and digital. And since I have inherited or took over also IT, I'm also very proud to see that in the IT area where we traditionally have a gender imbalance, we are above the company's target in terms of gender balance. So this is really a motive of pride for me and the team. One thing that I think is very important that we talk there, and every time that I go and visit countries, and I did this recently in the Middle East, that we clarify. When I talk about gender diversity and when I talk about gender equality, it's really important that people understand that I never think that men are the enemy. And this is really important because everyone has to benefit from diversity. And I think one of the things that holds us back in some of those progress in there is when people see this as for the benefit of women and to the demerit of men. And this is the wrong way of looking at it. So what we do is that we focus on having balance in different levels. As we have achieved, for example, in strategic marketing and digital, the gender balance already, we are looking at other areas of diversity to make sure that we have people in our teams that represent the people we serve. The second area where we are putting priority in our teams and also for our brands is physical abilities. 15% of the global population has, different sorts of physical ability needs or challenges. And Bayer for over 70 years has been investing in this area to support development. And if you see some of our brands like Bepanthen, we are really breaking the mold on showing off the people that we represent. And this is one of the most beautiful things that we have done. So if you are interested in knowing more, just follow Bepanthen commercials and communications, especially the latest Brazilian advertisings, where you can see how we are representing really the Brazilian population. And as a Brazilian national, I can say that this is amazingly beautifully done. And this is just one example. You mentioned memory test, where we are really shining the lights on how do we help women to get recognition for their achievements, because there are many achievements. So this is another thing that I would really incentivize you to take a look at. I believe that in the comments from the podcast, you will have the link for both of those campaigns.
Great to hear, Patricia. And I must admit, I don't know the Bepanthen commercial from Brazil, but I'm sure I'll look at this one. And I have a big team in Brazil, and I'm really curious to see that one. Now, and we at Accenture are a fundamental believer that inclusion diversity boosts innovation. So for us, what you just said about, it is not about who you need to include and who you exclude, it's really how you bring this team together. But still, bringing teams and people together also mean that you have differences, right? Which is actually good, right? In my view, differences are great. So, but you are running one of the diverse team at Bayer, as you said. Bayer has been recognized also for the work and regarding inclusion and diversity. How do you manage these differences, and how do you benefit from these differences, and how to make this work in the daily operations? Any tips and tricks for our listeners, how you deal with this on a daily basis?
I love that point because I'm 100% with you. Having a diverse team is hard work because having different opinions at the table, they count less if there is not an inclusive culture. So the number one thing that I would say is, bring the diversity to the team and then be prepared to work hard on bringing inclusion, that everyone feels like they have a seat at the table. There is a culture of respect, openness to different opinions. And it's not as easy. I'm going to give you a personal example of something that, many, many moons ago happened with me when I was in a crash course. I think it was the beginning of 2000. And a colleague from Korea, we were talking about the foods that we like. And at that point, he said that he loved dog meat. And I had just bought a puppy. And I remember I had two choices there. I could completely initially reject what he was saying, or I can, press on my curiosity and go to him and say, tell me a little bit more about that. How does it work? And it was one of the most insightful conversations I had in my life, because it was just a matter of perspective. If you don't see an animal as a pet, it's very difficult for you to have the same relationship we have. But if you already go close, that anything that is different from what you have lived and experienced in your youth or adulthood is wrong, you lose the opportunity to see the world with such different lenses. And honestly, Jan, I think this is amazing, to open yourself to see the world through other people's eyes. Again, I was in the Middle East 2 weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to, in Cairo and in Dubai, see the world through different eyes. And it was so rich, so insightful. And the more I've learned, the more I was open to hear, the more it helped me to craft better thinking and be, as you say, innovative on the solutions that we can provide as a global central team. So all in all, 100% with you. That's why we have just a great partnership with Accenture and your teams. We really believe this diversity of thinking, experiences, backgrounds help us to be more innovative, more solution oriented, more creative.
I really love what you're saying, Patricia, because in my world, we all come with unconscious bias to a table. It's an unfortunate truth. There's nothing we can do about, but then really listening. You don't have to accept the other's opinion, right? You don't have to say, listen, I like what you're saying, but listening to their understanding, to their argumentation, how they think, will make you much more broader in your appreciation of those things, despite that you might have a very different opinion about eating, in your case, dogs, for example, right? It's just a cultural heritage where we look at these things differently and then we can move on. So I think this is great, and it affects our leadership styles, and it will help us to really become much more. So maybe from that perspective, how do you deal with this from a leadership style perspective? Anything that you would say has changed most on your own style in the last couple of years because of these movements that are so fundamental and so right, where you say, this is how Patricia Corsi changed as an individual, as a leader?
So the first thing, I got tested. Because, if it's an unconscious bias, if it's unconscious, you cannot do anything about it. And I think we live in a world where I love the principle of no excuses. If I know that everyone has unconscious bias, and I take a conscious choice not to know what they are, then I'm making a conscious choice not to work on them. So the first thing I did was to get tested. So my unconscious bias now are conscious. And this helps me to keep myself honest. Because whenever I face something where I either, disagree heavily with or agree heavily with, I do a bit of a sense check. Is there anything from my bias, now conscious bias, that could be playing a role? Could be making a preference on like or dislike? And I think this is a constant, I don't want to say policing, because normally this word is using in a negative way, but I mean policing in the sense of protect and serve. So it protects me to do something that would be an unintended consequence of not being, fully conscious of the impacts of my words and my acts. And then serve, because the more I'm paying attention to this, the better I can serve a team that is extremely diverse. And this is also, we haven't discussed age groups. There's so many different layers of diversity, right? So it's almost impossible to cover all of them in a global level, but we need to make sure that we have representation. We have people that are generous enough to help us to understand. The other thing that I do, Jan, I've asked for help. And probably 1 year ago, I really want to better understand how to serve the trans community. And in my circuit of friends and close friends or colleagues, I've noticed that I had no one from the trans community which I could ask for help and to educate me, and someone that really knew me enough to know that I'm asking not out of wanting to know about their personal life, but for example, when we are talking about women's intimate health with Canistan, in the trans community, we have a lot of women that do not have vagina. So how are we serving them? Right? And I communicate that to the team in terms of these are the areas where I really want to improve, my learning, my understanding. And not to my surprise, because I'm always amazed with the generosity of people, I was approached by a trans person in our team, and he said, "How can I help you? What do you want to know?" And he was so generous, because he said, "Look, I know you might have completely different set of questions. I'm open for you to ask me everything, because I wish more people wanting to know more about the trans community so they can help." And it was one of the most insightful conversations I have had. But it was only thanks to the generosity of people. Instead of judging my ask, he was really, a strong believer that I was really interested. And I think we need more of those people. Instead of judging people when they say something that might be potentially incorrect, or someone that is not very versed on using the pronouns, reach out to that person, give the benefit of the doubt. If it's a person that you know and you think has good values, reach out to that person and give the benefit of the doubt and say, "Look, I think what you said down there, maybe you didn't realize can be quite offensive, or it is not very inclusive." And depending on how the person reacts, you can decide on continue the conversation or not. But I would really count on all of us. And I put myself on that position as well as a Latin woman. I had so many people asking how it is. And if I shut myself off for that, I'm not helping to elevate the diversity understanding. So this is why I feel very strongly about it. And I think this is, again, it's hard work, but it's much better from a personal point of view. I think I'm a much better individual. But you have to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, recognize that we do not know a lot. And it's very difficult to say that you understand how it is to live with blindness if you are not blind. So, we can only understand as much as we talk to people that are really facing those challenges with interest, with passion to serve and to make life better for everyone.
I'm having goosebumps as you speak, Patricia, because this is one of the reasons why I invited you, because you are so visionary and still so much into the day life of your colleagues, of your customers, of so many groups that makes you so authentic as a leader, that really appreciate for taking time. I don't like to end this podcast, but it's coming to an end, frankly speaking. It's been a very interesting, insightful discussion, and it's been a great chat about digitalization, sustainability, and diversity at Tomorrow Today podcast with Accenture. I would like to close this podcast with one final question from my side. If you would give your own self a career advice, maybe 20 years back, what would be that one advice you would give to yourself, looking back at what you've achieved in a number of years?
I'm going to focus on the positive things I have done, not by design, not because I had a blueprint, but I think this would be things that I will tell my son when he gets into the working environment. I think the first thing is really be open to differences. And I think this is one of the things that makes a difference between people that can succeed in life, can succeed in crisis, can be agile to learn and move around. The second one, surround yourself with amazing people that want nothing but your best, and then listen to them when they confront you with the truth that you don't want to hear. I think learning how to receive feedback and work on them, it's really a craft. And I think this is something that sometimes at the beginning of your career, you don't see as much value of it as you see as you move up. And one thing that I have not done that I wish I had done much earlier, but I done later on, so I'm catching up, is make sure that you have 2 or 3, your personal board of directors, people that you deeply trust, that you can go and open your heart when you are facing big personal and professional, because those things, they go interlinked decisions. In all times, they help you to see the options with different lenses. And I find this extremely helpful. Not because they will give you the solutions, not because they will give you the answers, but they help you to take much better informed decisions. And all in all, Jan, I love the hashtag Tomorrow Today, because everything we discussed today, it really is the tomorrow that started yesterday almost, actually. Be a business person. I think it's not about being a marketing person, a technology person. Be a business person. Marketing and technology are at the service of a business that is at the service of customers and consumers and shareholders. So strengthen your partnerships with your functional, partners like finance, supply chain, R&D, the tech guys. Move out of the silos. Silos are, I think, of the past. I think silos are so 1960s, like manual typewriters. So if you look at silos from this lens, you don't want to be the owning a typewriter when everybody is doing voice messages. So this would be the things that I believe could help anyone starting their career to the best of my intentions.
Amazing closing words. Thank you very much for your time and participation, and thank you everyone for listening to the podcast Tomorrow Today. Patricia, have a great day and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Accenture. It was a joy to have this conversation with you all.
It's been a great chat about digital transformation, sustainability and diversity here on Tomorrow Today.
Hat euch das Gespräch gefallen? Dann folgt jetzt unserem Tomorrow Today Podcast, um zukünftig keine Episode mehr zu verpassen.
Accenture. Let there be change.